up, my 1111 YouTube friends? Sport my Indy 650 pumpkin hat here. Shane Jackson, WedgeLife98.com. Right when he found out that we're going to start building this sled, this was back in the spring, is when Trent and I decided that we were going to build this 92 650 pumpkin, turbocharged 650. Shane sent me one of his hats right away. So I thank Shane. Check out his website, WedgeLife98.com. I'll put it in the description also. I think he's even running like a promo or something this month on the 92 650 stuff. So check it out. He's got all kinds of cool stuff on there. Shane's a great guy. But a huge day yesterday. I'm going to start popping up more videos now. Trent and I are both on this project now. Just a lot of... We spent a lot of time acquiring the parts to be able to do this. And that takes time, a lot of time. And now it's assembly time. So we're gonna move full steam ahead. But there's still always snags. You know, you run into where you didn't order enough Heim joints for some reason. I thought I duplicated my order from the last time when I put in an order, and I went right in my previous shopping cart on McMaster Car. That's where we get our Heim joints from. You can see them right here. They're absolutely gorgeous, and a fraction of the price than they were at Polaris. I don't even know if Polaris even offers them still. I'm not sure. But anyways, McMaster Car is where we get all of our Heim joints from. And I made up these shock dummies here. This is what the shock's compressed height is for the shock. So that way we can adjust all of our cambers and toe ends and all that stuff with that shock dummy in, instead of having the shock in the way or having the suspension hanging. This way, that is our ride height right now. So I just took some aluminum tube, figured out what our ride height was going to be on our shocks when it was compressed with weight in the sled, and just simply drilled some holes and bolted them in place. There's no nut or anything. You can just slide it out and get this thing out of the way quickly enough if you have to. But yeah, that's what I do for setting up the suspension when it's suspended like this. Like I said, that is our compressed ride height once the sled is sitting on the floor with an engine and the hood and everything else on it. But yeah, yesterday was a huge day. I think we put in no less than maybe 250 rivets. I'm not sure, but yesterday was a riveting day. We did our semi-hollow rivets. That was a little bit of a learning curve. I had to make a couple tools for that. I bought one, but then I had to modify it, and then I had to make the tool to actually put on this side to hold the head. I'll show you that tool here in a second. But Trenton went ahead, he polished all the rivets heads before we installed them. Daunting task, but Trenton is just taking it over the top on all the polishing work on this sled, and he's not going to stop at anything now. So, and I looked down, I bought these from Leaders RPM. They're out of Michigan, and this is where I got the aluminum semi-hollow rivets from. And I swear on their website, it said 50 needed to do the job. That was 50, I think, for one side of the sled, because I have half. So we skipped a lot of spots. That's why you see a bunch missing here and there, because we just basically got in what we needed to get in so it'd hold the brackets and stuff in place so we can move forward, and then we're gonna have to go back and install the missing ones. Like we have a bunch missing back here. Yeah, they're missing all over the place. So we just used what we had to be able to get things completed and together, and you'll even see a bolt in here and there. Yeah, we did what we did so we could keep moving forward. But all the heat exchangers are back in. A lot of the stuff is put back together, and it's exciting, absolutely exciting. Yeah, me and Trenton just went back and forth all day yesterday and riveting and putting parts on, and then I started working on the aluminum skis at the end of the day, and he started bolting on the front suspension. So things came together awesome yesterday. A few more parts he's got staged. This is like Trenton's command center right here. This is his assembly area, his polishing area. This is where Trenton's been hanging out, doing all of his work. I think the next big thing is to get in the sway bar. Yeah, what else did he's got the chain case sitting here ready to go. He just keeps staging his parts right here, goes through them, does what has to be done, and then installs them on the sled. here's a dilemma I'm kind of dealing with personally. Trenton's already got his mind made up, but so here's the pipe that came off the donor sled. That's an XLT expansion chamber with the turbo flange on the pipe and everything. This is kind of a tough one to find. You don't see these too often, but an NOS 650 expansion chamber. Now, when I set them on top of each other, I can't help to notice, but like size-wise, everything's like identical. Something a little different going on over here, but I think I can modify some stuff here. The shock tower mount's different. I'd have to modify that. But I feel like I should just go with what is already built. We want to ceramic coat everything. And we've known in the past, if anything has any rust pitting, you can see it in the ceramic coating when it's done. This one's NOS, so it's never had rust. So this thing would look like chrome after it's ceramic coated. That one might have some pitting. I think where I'm at right now is I'm going to bring them both to Race Coatings in Wyoming and have them blast them and make a decision on which one is going to look better. Or we just do them both and see what we come up with. But I have heard people have said, you know, because the 650 expansion chambers, all these things have rusted out. These are really hard to find. I've heard people say, yeah, you can use an XLT one. Now that I have both of them sitting next to each other, I agree. There is some slight differences, but I just, it's so close to saying, you know, maybe there's a little something different right in here. And maybe that would matter, the way the cone comes down. Not 100% sure. Hopefully somebody can chime in on the comments. Pipe tuning, or knowing how a pipe tunes your engine, I'm going to claim I don't know. So I don't. So maybe that cone difference at the end would affect the difference between a 650 engine and an XLT engine. They're so close in CCs, but every engine has its different characteristics on what they want for a pipe. So possibly that XLT one would not work then because the cone is a little bit different on there. So we'll move past that. Here's my command center over here. This is where I do all my dirty work at. Here's the white gauges that we're going to be running in the 650. Got these from a friend. Awesome. This one has 883 miles on it. White face gauges, I love the look of them, and I think they'll look just killer in this sled with this. It's going to have that black hood and a black windshield, and it's going to have a black pod, dash pod, and then these white face gauges. I think they're just going to pop on that dash. It's just going to look awesome. Here's the aluminum skis that I am reinforcing, adding some welds. Dirty, nasty son of a guns to weld on. And the sandblaster didn't quite get the paint out. And so as I'm welding, the paint's bleeding out. And frankly, the welds look like shit. But I'm going to grind them down a little bit, touch off the tops a little bit. And once these are Thermochrome, not going to really see it. But yeah, these things are just bleeding out paint and whatnot everywhere as I'm welding. So these are the extra supports I put on the sides where the skis mount onto your spindle. It's 1/8 inch thick aluminum. I simply made the plates. Here's one over here. I haven't welded it yet. So I make the plates, punch a hole, I slide a bolt through, put some nuts on, bolt that in place, and start welding. And this really beefs up this area where they mounted. And I got to go through and do some clamp. I mean, there's already factory welds broke underneath here, and that's what they did. They kind of self-disintegrated, so that's why I added all these welds on the top. So yeah, I just have to go and clamp this up and add all those other welds that I added on these skis over here. And would I suggest running these skis for 200-mile trips every weekend on a sled that you're going to put multi-thousands of miles on? I probably wouldn't recommend these skis for what we do. And what this sled's going to be probably ridden for is, short rides, 40, 50-mile trips, and we make sure the trails are pristine before we take some of these sleds out that we run aluminum skis. We don't go ditch bang. We don't race across the lake hitting ice heaves. No, because the aluminum skis will not last doing that, and we all know that. And so when we ride them, in the conditions that we ride, we make sure it's pristine conditions so the aluminum skis will last. And they look awesome on the sled and they're light and they just, like I said, but we take care of them. You got to be vigilant on knowing when to ride that sled with what trail conditions are. You can't just leave out on a trail and the trail's horse shit and you just keep on going. Skis aren't going to last. They're going to fall apart, break. You're going to be disappointed and upset. So today I'm going to pull the engine apart. I do believe I was going to do it yesterday, but it seemed like a good day for me and Trenton just to both team up on getting it back to where it is. So, I was going to show you that tool. See, I squirreled out on you guys. So where did I put it? Right here. Here it is. So he took a piece of brass, and it took a while to get this radius right to fit on. Shit, I tried different drill bits, different D-burrs, everything to get the right radius for that to fit onto the head like that. So basically, Trenton was on one side with this as a backup, and he'd hold the rivet with this, and I was on the other side. And then after I was done drilling and everything, I sanded it, and then I actually ran it on the buffing wheel to make it super smooth so it wouldn't leave. Because like I said, he polished all them rivet heads first. So I had to make sure the tool was nice and smooth so it wouldn't leave. And there's a few that got some marks, like this thing slipped, like when I rattled, and it was, we had to test air pressures and stuff. The first couple were complete bombs because we ran way too much air pressure. So we ended up down at 40 pounds of pressure is what we found. Let me pull this thing out of here. So look at this, just a stub little setup in my air hammer. But I just did a little welding here. Oh boy. So I bought a tool from McMaster Carr that was about 8 inches long that you hit with a hammer. I'm like, that's too much hammering. Let's make it work in the air hammer. So I took an old chisel bit that was all kind of gnarled up from chiseling the hell out of something, cut it off, cut off that other tool, whammo bammo, a little TIG welding, and here is my tool that I made to go in the air hammer. And like I said, at first we were running wide open pressure, and that didn't work. That was destroying stuff, and we just kept turning the pressure down. And so we ended up at 40 PSI, and you could kind of hear as the rivet was set, because the tone would change. Because at 40, you could go do, 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 and then you would hear it dunk, dunk, you could hear it set tight. And when we were running too much pressure, it was like, and yeah, everything was just a mess. So I'll kind of show you down below, down here, on how they set. So you can see how they're mushroomed over. I was a little intimidated at first about doing these things, but now that I've done them, super easy to do. Super, super easy. Yeah, you could probably pound them by hand, but God, you'd need 8 arms. One to hold the tool, one to hold the hammer, one to hold the deadbolt, and actually, if I would have had to do this by myself, it would have been easy enough for me to reach around, hold that deadbolt, and hold the air hammer at the same time, and rattle them in. So, yeah. So if you're gonna do these semi-hollow aluminum rivets to put your tunnel back together, super easy to do. Like I said, you can, and there's an actual kit. I think Northern Tool, sold the kit. Like I bought mine from McMaster Carr, and it only came half. That's why I had to make this piece. And I've heard other people have bought the complete kit to where you get a cup or something to hold the rivet head. So maybe look for that. Like I said, through McMaster Carr, it was only half of it, and I had to make the other half, so no big deal. But if you don't have the stuff around, then it's a major big deal. But that's what I have. Engine today. Trenton's going to assemble more. I'll probably do another video. I'm going to just keep popping videos up for you guys as this thing rolls along. Yeah, we're actually hoping by Thanksgiving, so we have deer hunting coming up soon, and so we take that pretty seriously, so sleds have to sit. But we're hoping by Thanksgiving weekend, this thing is sitting on the floor. Maybe not an engine in it, but sitting on skis and a track and all that fun business. A roller is what most people would call it. So that's what we're shooting for. I got to paint a hood yet too. Yeah, I have a hood. I just got to get it prepped and painted and get the decals laid on it. And that's going to be an exciting moment. That's going to be like Christmas Day. So thanks for watching, everybody. And like I said, I'll keep popping up videos a lot more often now. Thanks.